All right. So we'll get going. How's it going, Reggie?
Hey, good. How you doing, man?
Doing well, man.
Good, good.
Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for those people who are watching. We're going to be here. I'm discussing. This is Reggie Pittman with SPR Productions. I'm Kirk Chavez with Dunkirk Media Productions, and we're going to talk about our love for film, specifically World War II film,
Yes.
and then our upcoming World War II short film that we're going to crowdfund, Battle of Britain: The Shelter.
Yep.
I'm so excited to be a part of the film community. Tell us a little bit about just your background with video, with film.
Yeah. I've been doing video probably for let's see, 8 years or probably more. But I started off at Calvary Worship Center, kind of just starting there, just doing audio, video stuff. And at one point, we started doing video announcements. And with filming video announcements, I kind of fell in love with just film, with just recording and shooting videos. And I was like, oh, I kind of like this a lot, And I've always had kind of just a love for film, just in general, and actually putting action to what I'm watching. Kind of doing those practices made me fall in love with filmmaking even more. And so, just kind of stepping into that role with my own production company, and then now working with you and stuff like that, it's kind of all just coming full circle. But yeah, been doing video for 8 years.
That's cool. Yeah. So with film, so specifically, I know I've known you a long time. I know you're a huge fan of war films. So
Yes.
what are some of the war films that have really inspired you and shaped your view of film?
Yeah. I think everybody's top one is Saving Private Ryan. And that film is great. I remember as a kid when that movie came out, had it on the VHS, whatever kind of thing. And we were kids, and my dad was like, all right, I'm gonna show you the first scene, And I remember it got to the point where they start letting down the ramp and the wheel starts turning, and Dad turned it off. I remember my heart beating out of my chest. I was like, dude, this is gonna be crazy. And then when we got older, then eventually we watched the whole film, and I was like, dude, that beach scene, I mean, nobody has ever done it that good. I've never seen a scene like that in any other film. And
it's a great scene.
Dude, it's so good. It's so good. I mean, the guy carrying his arm and stuff. I mean, I was like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. But Saving Private Ryan is obviously just like a go-to. But my favorite World War II film, or even like Fury, I really like Fury. That's a more recent one.
Mm-hmm.
Fury's really good. But my favorite World War II film is The Thin Red Line.
Okay.
And that one, it's just like it doesn't hold your hand, and it kind of just it's telling you a lot, and you kind of got to just figure it out. I remember I watched it for the first time when I was a teenager. I didn't like it because I was like, dude, where's the action, man? Like, what I'm saying? Like, where's the fighting? Where's all the stuff? And then watching it when I was in my 20s, I was like, oh, this is really good.
And I'll need to rewatch it. That's one that never. I only saw it one. It was last year. I watched it, and it didn't do it for me. But like, really? I loved the battle.
Yeah,
loved the battle sequence. But I think there was just a little too much, like BBC nature documentary with like philosophy over it.
Yeah,
all of it. I mean, Terrence Malick's cinematography is always beautiful.
Yeah,
but as a film itself, it didn't do it for me. Even though there's some aspects I really liked of it.
Right. I think that's what I liked about it so much was just the way he shot it, and the way it's so different than what you're used to.
Yeah, I will say there's a shot when, and I really loved it. It is one of my favorite shots in a war movie from that.
Yeah.
Is when you kind of the battle's setting up, and there's a lot of time as they're at the base of the hill, kind of getting ready to go, like take the hill, and then you start getting like progression up the hill.
Yeah.
And you think they've gone somewhere, and then there's just this swooping shot of how much they haven't taken. And you just realize, you're like, oh, this is such a bad situation for them to be in.
Yeah.
And they don't even realize it. And like there's some great just visual storytelling in it. Like I will definitely give it that mark. It's got some great visual storytelling.
Yeah, it's obviously, I think with battle scenes and stuff, it doesn't even rank close to probably the best I've ever seen.
Yeah.
But I think just the underlying message of the film, dealing with what's the meaning of life and why are we suffering, why are we going through things we're going through, and then the conflict between the commander and then the squad lead. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
all that stuff that's going on in the film, and then fighting over blades of grass.
Hmm.
And so just kind of how it dives into that. And like you said, the National Geographic nature, documentary style shooting. Like I don't know, it just captures me, man. And I'm like, man,
It
this is
is very
so good.
visually engaging. Yeah.
Visually, yeah, very visually engaging. But that is definitely my favorite World War II film.
That's cool.
Yeah.
What are others? What are others that have kind of like really stuck out to you?
I would say The Pianist. That's a great one. Just kind of a different take. I know it's not battle, but that's a really good World War II film. Um, like I said, Fury. Fury's a really good one. Saving Private Ryan. They're not films; they're the series. But all the stuff of Tom Hanks and Steven Spielberg did with The Pacific, Band of Brothers, those are
phenomenal.
amazing.
Yeah,
really good. Did you watch the? They came out with a new one. It was
Masters of the Air.
Masters of the Air.
I haven't seen that one.
It's pretty good. It doesn't really, for me when I was watching it, it was good, but it doesn't really connect you with the characters.
Mm-hmm.
Just kind of when you watch it, it's like,
yeah, Band of Brothers especially did that so well.
So good.
I think good. So with writing Battle of Britain, that Band of Brothers was like what inspired me. Specifically two of the actors we have involved, Vianne and Nathan. There's the scene where there's the medic and the nurse, and they just have a cup of coffee, and then they're right into, we got to save somebody.
Yeah.
And just that scene, I was watching it, and I could see, having worked with Vianne and Nathan a lot, I was like, man, they could do a scene that intense and do that so well. And it was one thing I was like, I wanted to give them that, because I was like, one, I want to be able to shoot something like that and write something like that. But two, I was like, I want to give actors the opportunity to be in something like that.
Yeah.
So that was hugely impactful. That series was hugely impactful on me writing this. And it even showed me some of like, there's so many stories to tell in World War II.
Yes. Yes. And I was going to go into that is, World War II is just so deep, and there's so many stories to tell, and that's why I like The Pianist. You have stuff where it's not necessarily war driven, but you see what happened on the outside of what the civilians went through, and then you have Saving Private Ryan, all those other ones where you go through what the soldiers went through, and it's just so deep, of an area of film to cover. But Band of Brothers, man, I mean, that really. I think watching Band of Brothers made me was like, I want to make a war movie. That was like my deep, like, oh, dude, I want to do that so bad.
Yeah, it really is.
It's a great. I don't think anything, even movie wise, is done really as good as Band of Brothers in telling stories.
Yeah, that is, and again, like, this one of the things with this, even though they might not be all connected. Wanting to do more than one, but keep that cohesion of around an idea of the Battle of Britain, because I've seen that. I've always been more of a movie person than a TV person, but I've started to get way more into TV and just see it opens up your storytelling variety. You can do so much.
Yeah.
You could watch something that you see the day-to-day life. You get to see what do they react like in this situation or that situation, and that's something I think. Miniseries specifically, I think sometimes you could have a great TV series that is 5 or 6 seasons, and it obviously it's going to be amazing. You get some of the top rated ones like Breaking Bad, Sopranos are known for their like touching on every single aspect of life that person would go through, but it's such a commitment. And I think Band of Brothers specifically found that like really great sweet spot of saying, we need more than a movie, but we don't need 5 years.
Right.
And I think that was what was really cool about that series. The other one that I think did that, the Chernobyl miniseries is a good example of that.
Oh, yeah,
and I think that's what we're really hoping to tap into with this is being able to say, we don't want to take years of your life, but we don't want to leave a lot of stories untold. We want to kind of flesh out more of that and give you more perspectives in a part, because there's a lot of, there have been some phenomenal movies made about the Battle of Britain or about the civilian plight in World War II. one of the best, Mrs. Miniver. I don't know if you've seen that one. It's an older one.
No.
But dude, one of its like not claims to fames, but it's a movie about a mother and her family in England, kind of at the beginning of the war. It goes into covers some of the Dunkirk evacuation. Phenomenal movie, phenomenal performances, but the Nazi propaganda minister actually showed it to his people and said, "This is how you make movies that get your nation to move."
Wow.
And like he's like, how did we let them make something like that? We can't. And just because it I think touches on so many aspects of, wow, what does it, one, mean to love your country, two, mean to fight for it, and two, mean to sacrifice for it in on the home front. And I think that's what was really so powerful about it is, it's very easy to do that. Any war movie can get you to, we're going to support this, oh, I'm going to fight with my brothers, I'm going to do that. But so few can say, hey, on the home front, how do you justify, I'm going to send my husband off to war, I'm going to send my son off to war, and I'm going to live with that sacrifice? And I think that's one of the, it was so impactful. It still is. I highly recommend it. It's a phenomenal movie.
Gotcha.
But it's one of the few, I think, that really touches into that deep home front level of sacrifice and day-to-day life. And again, that's what we were hoping. So Band of Brothers and Mrs. Miniver were two of like the major players in kind of the development of this Battle of Britain, the Shelter Project.
Yeah. I know it's going to be great. I mean, we work with great talent. I mean, when we did the test filming and stuff, I mean, everybody was like, I was blown away. You kind of work with them kind of more often and stuff like that. And I mean, to get to see them kind of just, it was funny that, they'd be goofing around, whatever, joking and laughing or whatever. And then it was like, okay, action. It was like, they were locked in, man. I mean, great.
Yeah.
Actors.
Nathan Vian, Sarah, Luca. I mean, all of them, the whole cast who was part of that test shoot. Always highly impressed every time I work with them.
Yeah.
But yeah, so then so what are other aspects of, I guess, films that have really, I think, as you come into a project, everyone kind of brings either experience or even ideas of what, like, man, I want to be able to instill something in that. Is there something with this project that like you have from past film experience, or that you're like, man, like I want to make sure this part of the story pops?
Yeah, I think for me, it's just the emotional side of it. I think sometimes a lot of films, they kind of rush that a bit. And okay, perfect example was the remake of, was it All Quiet on the Western Front? Did you see that one? It was
I haven't yet.
A couple years, I think came out a couple years ago or last year. Have you seen the original?
I've actually not seen either. They're both on my list.
Okay. Well, the original is like deep, man. I mean, it's like, it takes you on a ride, and it shows that kind of desperation, that high of, oh, we're so happy to go to war, it's World War I with the Germans, and then you kind of get to the battlefield and the reality kicks in, you know what I'm saying? And the reality is war and all that stuff. And it does such a good job of taking you through the highs and then the deep lows of battle, of war. And in the remake, they don't do that, and it's kind of like they rush through that transition of, you really see that person change, you know what I'm saying? And I think with this film, my thing is, I really want to capture just the emotional side, really in a deep and creative way. I know that this film, I mean, when we did the test shoot, it was like, when we did that, it was so good. And I think there was moments where I was kind of just, my head was just rolling. I was like, oh, dude, if we did this, or if we could do this, I think we could really capture even that final shot when we were going through the characters at the end and finishing on the last one. I mean, that shot in itself was powerful. And just hitting even more on that end and stuff like that. I think for me, because it's just a short film, right? You gotta tell stories kind of quickly. You gotta kind of go through stuff real quick, but just kind of touching on that emotional side of the characters and what they go through.
Yeah, and that's what I was really happy to see as we were working with the actors. And I mean, again, we did a test shoot in deciding to film this, and it was, we took 2 days, not even 2 days with the full cast. We had a day with the full cast.
Yeah.
And we finished the script the week before. You know, is we redrafted it some sense, but that core script, you know, of just kind of setting the characters up, giving the actors like a hey, like do these characters work, seeing what they brought to the characters. You know, again, I was so amazed at the depth that we were able to get with a day and a half in a $5 budget. I mean, literally, we bought some waters, we borrowed some pipe and drape, and you know, had no time to plan anything, and just I think seeing everyone come together of hey, how do we get these shots? You know, even seeing the actors pitch in of hey, here's what we need to do to, you know, move so you can get a camera by in this like little confined space. And I think now, you know, having had some months to redraft the script, tighten everything up, letting those emotional moments have the time to breathe now, and then also being able to like plan shots and have like, you know, when we get funding, be able to truly build a bunker that like immerses the actors in it. I'm so excited to see how it even elevates their performances more. Because again, I've seen several of them. I've worked with them in theater, a little bit in film, and I've seen them be able to pull in what I would say like Oscar Cannibal in some cases, and just when you immerse them and allow them to really even take their acting to the next level, and then we get to plan everything to find those shots. You know, I remember in our test film there was a specific, you know, moment where one of the characters, the mother, is talking to a young man who she's trying to help him realize, you know, what he's done is helped people, even if he wasn't able to save someone's life, it was noble. And Sarah Smith was able to just take, even with her hand, and everything from her eyes to her hand to her head motions had so much emotion into it, and you could see the processing of, you know, how do I take care of these people who are injured and also take care of this person who, while not maybe injured, is dealing with the biggest crisis of their life, and her being able to see her emotion and processing that, it was so deep. And now being saying, wow, like, you know, that was a moment I had written deep, and she took so much deeper. So how can we then even go further and collaborate to like catch those moments? And I think that's one of the things I love about film, it being such a collaborative art form of being able to see like, wow, you can have a great script, you can have a great director, you can have a great actor, and you can sometimes have all three, or even just a great crew. You know, seeing, you know, where some of the lighting things you brought in of like, wow, like if we move these lights over here, this casts a totally different emotion on these parts of the scenes. And I think that's just such a cool part to see. And I'm just excited to see as you know, we bring this project together.
Well, even working with the great cast that we had, it was like they would kind of go off script a little bit, and they did great. I mean, they would add more emotion and different emotions and stuff. And you know, I think what people will get from this film and when watching it is kind of like what I was saying with All Quiet on the Western Front. Maybe not as intense, but you kind of see that joy, and then you kind of see it melt, you know, as the events kind of take place and stuff, and just how you tapping into that, getting certain shots, getting certain angles. I know when I was filming, you know, filming through a little curtain, I was filming somebody, man. I think was it Peter? Man, help me. Bryce, his ears were ringing.
Oh,
right? Yeah. And just the shot I was getting, man. Oh, dude.
Yeah.
It was intense, man. I was like, dude, this is really good. I mean, just seeing him kind of sitting and being consoled and all the things that was going on in that scene, and just the emotions of that. And I just remember sitting here, I was like, dude, I wish we had like 4 or 5 days to film. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. It's like, if we just had more time. And so that's something I really want to bring out with the film.
Yeah.
And again, just excited to work with the actors because I know that they can take it to that level.
Oh yeah.
So it's going to be exciting.
Yeah,
for sure.
It's great. So I mean, as you know, we're going to keep talking some more about some films that have inspired us, but you know, that is what this stream and a lot of what we're advertising is ultimately about. You know, trying to get funding for our short film Battle of Britain the Shelter, and it's a story that, you know, it's going to use local actors, local film crew, and really just, you know, bringing film to Colorado. You know, especially Colorado Springs, we're a city that has an arts community that is actually insanely talented. But you know, I think sometimes we get overshadowed by Denver, or you know, just it's it doesn't have that, I guess, backing or even, I guess, like collaboration. I think that, the more I work with people, the more I realize, wow, there are so many talented people with film experience here in the Springs
Yeah.
that just aren't connected.
Yeah.
Again, someone I worked with, I got to talk with Peter Dianello, who he's got a film he directed coming out. Phenomenal acting coach, phenomenal. He used to be a talent agent.
Wow.
And he's working with the Academy of Community Theater and Academy of Children's Theater doing master classes. No idea this guy was in Colorado. He's based out of Denver. No idea his repertoire, his talent. And he's come out of retirement trying to build actors up, build writers up, working with, with you and with some other people, that just, like, I don't think, no, there's this connection and there's this community that's wanting to emerge here in the Springs. And so, we asked for you guys, help us with that, help fund this film. This will be the first of 4 short films, Battle of Britain themed. It's going to be our Battle of Britain series.
Yeah.
We already are working on the script for the second one. We're working on getting this one funded, and some of the funding, if we hit our stretch goals, is actually going to go to our second film. So, support us. Follow our Kickstarter, Battle of Britain, the Shelter. That's where we'll be crowdfunding starting April 2nd. And yeah, we just love your help. But yeah, so, now, we got some time left. We're going to keep talking about just film. And what are other films that have really inspired you into wanting to be a filmmaker and have just really, or even films that have had like an aha moment of, this is how I want to tell a story?
I would say, there's so many good films out there, but I think one that really kind of inspired me is an animation. Have you heard of Grave of Fireflies?
Yes. Oh
Yeah.
my word. Such a good movie.
Such a good movie. That movie, I remember watching it, just kind of going in, thinking it's kind of just a kid's movie. I had no idea what I was getting myself into.
For those of you who haven't seen it, one of those movies I actually think people like should watch, because I think as Americans especially, we don't understand that perspective of what Japanese civilians went through. So Grave of the Fireflies is so good, but I mean, heart-rending movie.
Yeah.
But yeah,
it's just one of those movies that, again, just kind of takes you to a different side, like you were saying. Kind of a different angle, what the Japanese people went through with the atomic bomb.
Even before that,
even before,
that it was watching that. I did so much research on the fire bombings we did on Japan before the atomic bomb, which almost were worse. And I don't think people realize that, that the destruction we unleashed on Japan before the atomic bombs was so widespread and so terrible.
Obviously we're kind of at war now with Iran and stuff, and civilians, part of war is civilians die, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's an unfortunate part of war. And I know there was a report that some civilians died in Iran, and people were up in arms about it, and they shouldn't be. Civilians died, but I always think back to like World War II, and it's like, man, we firebombed just everybody in Japan. I mean, Germany, we just bombed cities there. I think it was Fredericksburg. We just bombed it off the map. And it's just like, man, this is the terrible part of war. A lot of times, I'd say war films, obviously you focus on the soldiers and you focus on the glory. And one of a great movies that I've seen recently, the war movie, was Warfare. And that movie was an interesting take because it just kind of showed the pointlessness of war. You know what I'm saying? Just to give a quick breakdown, is they're during the Iraq War, and they're in a house just observing, and things just fall apart right away. And it wasn't like a movie where like, yeah, everybody's brave and we band together, and it was just chaos. And it was like, this is the reality, and the reality of war is that civilians die, and it's like, you see that side, you see what they go through. Like you said, Japan had wood houses, so the firebomb, that's why it was so effective, because they had wood houses, so the flames just spread. So crazy. I mean, there food shortages, all types of stuff that was going on in Japan. And so just that movie, just in general, just I love just the emotional side of war films. Obviously, I love battles, I love all that stuff, but just the stories, the building of those stories is just so good, and I think that's why World War II, I think it's so popular.
Yeah,
just because there's so many stories, so many people are involved in the movies that have come out. We haven't even touched.
I think that's a
the
crazy
surface.
thing. It's funny working, with my day job, having worked in logistics just for one company. I think the only movie I've seen that really touches on it even a little bit, and it's a kind of a dark comedy, is Kelly's Heroes.
Yes,
But the logistics of war.
Yeah.
And I think that's a crazy side. You look at like every army, like, so the US had the Army, the Air Force, well, the Army Corps, the Air Corps, the Navy, the Marines.
Yeah.
You had the Special Intelligence. You had the MPs. You had your war engineers. You had your war planning. You had your just logistics.
Yeah.
You had your home front. You had your like factory front. You had all this, and that's millions of people in so many different aspects. And then every one of the 30 plus countries that were involved in the war had that.
Right.
And I think that's it's crazy, and that's something that was really interesting. Even The Grave of the Fireflies touched on it, obviously, some more from a children's eye of what was it like in Japan. But another one, The Wind Rises. I don't know if you've seen that one.
No, I haven't seen that one.
That one touches on some. It was the architect for the Japanese Zero, and he wanted to build planes, and it touches on his.
That's the animated film.
Yeah, it's another animated film. Yeah. Another animated film, but he just wanted to build planes, and then ultimately, all of Japanese plane production went to building warp fighters.
Right.
But even he, like, hey, how do we, just wanting to advancements in aeronautics, and it's just a side you don't think about, and it was really fascinating, just hearing his story, or even his wife, I believe, had tuberculosis, and needing to leave to go visit his wife, and like being investigated because he would leave the factory, because they were expected to work, 24 hours a day basically. And he would leave to go visit his wife who had tuberculosis, and he was investigated for that.
Right.
And, I think it's just so interesting. On the ally side, even the Access side, the stories that are not told. The Book Thief is, I think, an excellent example of that. I don't know if you've seen that one.
No, I haven't seen that one.
Very good. Very, very good movie about civilians during World War II, and specifically, maybe people in Germany who weren't allied with the Nazis, or who were dissenters,
right,
or who were on the fence, even, because that, and then also phenomenal perspective of Death's involvement in war. Death as a character, it has a very interesting take with that. Highly recommend The Book Thief. But again, just a perspective of civilians in that war.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, there's so many. You think about it, right? World War II, Nazis, all Germans bad, but that's not the case, right? And that's what I mean. It's just there's so many stories to tell. I think a story I would love for them to tell is the 442nd, the all Japanese battalion. They did a movie like back in like the 50s, Go for Broke. It wasn't great, but I would love for them to redo that. I mean, it's something that I learned years ago. I didn't even realize the camps we had, right, for Japanese Americans, and reading that, learning about it, and then learning about that battalion, and they were the most decorated battalion, and during World War II for the U.S. So. Just their stories of heroism and fighting for a country that kind of threw you into camp, and just those stories, and just their patriotism and stuff like that, and things they went through, and yeah, I mean, there's just so much stories, man. I mean, you talk to some people like, oh, let's take a World War II movies. I'm like, dude, we haven't even touched the surface of what you could do.
One, and I mean, it would be a dream project.
Yeah.
I actually heard about this story from the band Sabaton. I don't know if you've heard Sabaton.
Yes.
So all their music's about historic battles.
Yeah.
And they have a song called "The Last Battle," and it's based off of a true story. There was a castle in the mountains that the SS were, or that they were holding like Allied prisoners, specifically, you know, people who were part of the underground or and you know, the war's going south, surrender's near. The SS were coming to kill everybody in that castle. And the German commander of the security sent a messenger to the Americans. He's like, you guys got to get here or these people are all dying. And he joined with the Americans to hold off the SS.
Yes.
And I'm like, it's literally a castle siege in World War II with like enemies coming together.
Yeah.
And I'm like, how has this not been made?
Yeah.
That's such a cool story.
Yes.
And
I've heard of that. Yes, I've heard of that story. And just read the But yeah.
And like I'm like, you know, there's so many interesting stories that just haven't been told in World War II. And again, that's what we're hoping to do with some of this.
Yeah.
Because again, I think, you know, again, Grave of the Fireflies, The Wind Rises, The Book Thief, Mrs. Miniver are all great examples of the civilian front that it receives very little recognition, but also just, you know, it was such a different time of life. You know, we have growing up, I had many neighbors who they were older, and you know, one of them he was actually at Pearl Harbor. He drove a fuel truck to the only planes that got off on the American side, and he was decorated.
Wow.
My sisters, unfortunately, you know, when we started to get to know him, he was starting to get dementia, but we were wonderful friends with his wife, and she was a little bit younger than him, but she grew up, you know, during that time. You know, she was a young teen. Toward the end of the war is when she became a nurse, and so, you know, it was he was an Air Force captain, she was a nurse, and they fell in love. They got married. They were married for almost 60 years until he died, or over 60 years till he died. And hearing her stories, you know, just, you know, little bits here and there, the hard things, the funny things, just how life was so different for that, you know, 5 years, for some, you know, for like England and Poland, 7 years of it was just a drastic time where like the whole world changed how it operated. And I don't think, like, again, I think there's so many fascinating stories to tell about that.
Well, I mean, if you think about it, like from the American side, the women built the war machine. You know, men are off fighting or whatever the case may be, and they built the tanks, they built the rifles and all that stuff. And it's like, you know, how everybody's life changed. You know, had a ration, and you couldn't get this, and you know, women donating their pantyhose for, you know, parachutes or whatever the case was. You know, it's like, you know, everybody's life changed for World War II. And I today it's like, you know, things going on in the country. It's like, I still got my smartphone and I don't really have to ration anything. And, you know, it's whatever. I don't even think if we got into that deep World War III kicked off, I don't think anybody would sacrifice anything, you know, just the way our society is today. I don't think we would do anything willingly.
It's crazy. And we complain about gas prices going up, when then it was like, you get your gas, you get this much gas, you don't get any more for 2 weeks, you better make it last.
Make it work,
flour, sugar were all rationed. Certain rubber and rubber and nylon, I think, were just cut off from civilians entirely, you know.
Right.
And I don't think we could fathom that. But again, it's how many stories of people who not only lived through that, but learned to thrive in that. I think that's what's crazy is like, again, you'd have these mothers who would make a household thrive on rationed food, would have to go work to build these war machines, and not just make it work, but like let their children thrive. And I think that's just so amazing. And then even, you know, again, the children who had to go through that, you know, being raised that way, where your father's across the sea fighting, your mother's working, and you're even, you know, pitching into the war effort, doing what you can,
collecting cans or whatever.
I think it's such a different perspective that, again, I think is so important to share.
Well, that's why they call them the greatest generation, right? You know, but I think it's just that willingness. You know, the willingness to serve and do your part. You know, I think is what made them so great. But yeah, man, crazy.
Awesome. Well, we're at about time. Thank you so much for those of you who are watching. Thank you, Reggie, for being here.
Yeah.
Hopefully, yeah, we're going to be doing more streams, talking about film, giving project updates as we get this film funded, and as we go through the production process, we'll be doing more live streams, and then also just doing some live streams to talk about film and about some pop culture, some history, and yeah, we just thank you guys for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you guys all next time. Thank you so much.
See you guys.